Yeah, it was a good conference. So.
It was absolutely exactly what I needed at that time for myself, as well as for my Solairus family, coming off of the holidays and getting ready for Super Bowl, and obviously the pilot shortage that everyone is speaking of now, the overpressurized industry on a whole. And, simple stuff like Vegas used to be the most simple trip ever to put together. And here in the last year, you are not so confident that you're going to get parking, that you're going to get slots. And if you just look at that one place by itself, it represents what is going on in this entire industry right now, almost everywhere.
Hello, and welcome to the Business Aviation Collective podcast, sponsored by LD Aviation. I'm your host, Lindsay, and today we get a chance to talk to Annette O'Sullivan. She is one of this year's Leadership Conference scholarship winners. She's also been in the aviation industry for quite some time now. She's currently a flight coordinator for Solairus. But like usual, we're going to start out with our first question, which is, how did you even get started in aviation? And by the way, welcome, Annette. I didn't give you a chance to say hello either.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for having me here. I'm honored and excited to tell my story and help others that may not know that this industry exists and all of the wonderful doors that can be opened.
Perfect. You are a perfect guest, because that's exactly what we try and do. We just need to get more people into this industry and love it like we do.
Yeah, well, because in high school, nobody is voted most likely to work in private aviation, right?
That's okay. There, that could be an aspirational new high school title.
Right.
So did you love aviation right from the beginning?
I actually did not. My dad used to drag me to the air shows in Houston as a child. It was hot. It was loud. It was stinky. And I did not understand or appreciate it at the time. Years down the road, it was the reverse, and I was dragging him to the air show, and he said it was tired and loud and stinky. So we kind of came full circle on that.
So funny. My dad did the same thing. I did all that stuff. And this year, I'm going to try and bring him to Oshkosh, because similar type of thing. He hasn't really been anymore, and now it's kind of all about my life. So it's my turn to bring him somewhere.
It's always fun when it does come full circle, and there's special moments to be had there. Even when looking back, those moments are a special place in my heart for sure.
Excellent. Yeah, totally. All right. So how did you get into aviation then? If it wasn't a love passion, how'd you get here?
It was complete accident. I was in college looking for a job. A friend of a friend worked at Millionaire Houston, and she said, "Hey, we're hiring CSR 2 to 10 shift to be perfect. You go to school in the morning, and you can work in the afternoon. Evenings, it kind of slows down. So sometimes you can study." And I was like, "Oh, it sounds perfect." Had no idea what I was getting myself into. And it was 100% meant to be. Learning from Roger Woolsey as my very first boss in aviation. He really set the standards high, which I feel like only helped propel me through this industry for my career.
That's awesome. Yeah, what a great mentor. And Millionaire has probably turned out thousands and thousands of new people into this industry. I think FBOs are one of the most common ways that people get into the scheduling dispatch role.
Absolutely, because it gives you don't know it at the time. You have no idea that you are really learning what is important to the schedulers and to the people that are on the aircraft, and how later you can then kind of switch and be a customer of an FBO instead of an employee.
Yeah, so totally true. So how long did you stay with Millionaire?
Millionaire, I was there probably 2 years, and then a base tenant asked if I wanted a job as a flight attendant. And I had only been on an airplane like twice, really never served food. And he said, "That's okay, we'll train you." And again, it was another one of those doors that opened up for me that gave me experience to do 3 other things that, led after that.
That is very cool. So what type of aircraft did you fly on?
It was the Challenger 601.
Okay. Very cool. How did you like?
Felt like a princess. It was awesome.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So how long did you do the flight attendant? I think you did a couple of different types of jobs in the flight attendant role, right?
I did. After I was with him a little over a year, and I did some contract work, and I dabbled in the airlines a bit and quickly learned that was a really good experience, but it wasn't for me. Several occasions, passengers would say, "You were the nicest flight attendant I have ever met." So it's a different level of service and different expectations. I enjoyed it. It just didn't provide that personalized touch that I originally fell in love with private aviation.
I think that is a really good point. And I guess maybe when we're young, we don't necessarily know that until we've tried it out. But I totally agree. I don't want to be one of the numbers. And I think there's a lot of people out there. You don't want to be one of the just mass numbers of people in a department. You want to be Annette. You want to be you want to know who you're working with. And I would dare say most people are almost friends in a flight department.
Absolutely. Almost family. Really. Yeah. It is almost family, as well as your clients become family as well when you get to know them, because it's your job to know their preferences, know their likes and dislikes, and anticipate what they need. And I think that's the part of private aviation, whether you're a flight attendant, you're at an FBO, or you're working as a flight coordinator, that is the key to the job.
Yep, totally. Okay, so what made you leave then the airlines?
My brain was turning to mush, was essentially what was happening.
Okay.
It just was a repetitive kind of, every day was kind of the same. And I just really wanted more and wanted to get back to where I felt like I contributed the most, which was on the private aviation side.
Okay. All right, cool. So where did you head after the airlines? Like, did you go back into flight attendant mode? Did you go back into scheduling mode?
I went back into FBO/scheduling mode. I was in Bakersfield, California, and
nice and warm.
Nice and, yeah, very warm, but very much like Texas. So it was not a big shock to me when I moved there. Originally, I actually wasn't supposed to work. I was supposed to kind of be more of a domestic kind as far as, kids and housework. And
sure,
after about a month, I was like, I am feeling more like I need to work. So I started cold calling all of the FBOs there on the field in Bakersfield and found someone that said, actually, we do need somebody like you. And started as part-time as they got an FBO built and started, and then ended up working charter and like crossing over to the charter side, which was another stepping stone for me to learn the charter and scheduling side.
That's so funny, because I find a lot of people try and get out of aviation, and I can that almost looks like you tried to get out of aviation, and then aviation was like, no, we're going to bring you back in.
That's right. Because it is a unique skill set. And once you have it, if you move somewhere and there is a decent sized airport, you're marketable there. So it's a job that you could almost do it anywhere. Wherever you end up and there's an airport, chances are you can get a job.
Sure. So you kind of came in ground level to this company and then grew with it. Is that
I did. They had just broken ground on building the actual FBO in Bakersfield. And I learned about construction. I learned about permits. It was a little bit outside of what my skill set was, but it also allowed me to grow and develop new sets of skills as I kind of navigated my way through the process.
Well, way to go saying yes to all those new opportunities and learning.
It was an adventure for sure. And then I was cross-trained for the charter side, which it's going to age me here, but we use a DOS-based scheduling system.
Yep.
That really only calculated the nautical miles. And then you had to convert that based on the aircraft into hours and give a very loose quote. And obviously we had to gather all of the fees by hand this time.
Right.
And the actual schedule was this, I can't even remember what size it was. This huge, almost like desk calendar that we had all the aircraft on one side and it was by day. And so whatever trip we had, it was all handwritten in. Trip sheets were hand typed.
Oh my goodness. Oh my.
At the end of every day before the next day. So when you talk about basics and grassroots, like that's it. You had to learn it or else there was not a computer and scheduling system to do it for you, which is valuable now because now you really just plug everything in and trust the computer, trust what it says.
Right.
And sometimes your instincts kick in. You're like, wait a minute. I remember there is something different about this destination that the computer and the scheduling system haven't caught.
That's unique. And I love it because like you really had to know your airplane and know your, like you said, the computers now all do it for us. Oh, sorry, your range, you're out of range. But you really had to know all of your weights and how many passengers you had, and then that's going to shorten your range. So cool.
Right. And fuel stops.
Sure.
All of it. And of course, everyone that's worked charter gets the 2 a.m. I want to go to Vegas calls. So those were always fun to chill with as well.
Yep. Oh my gosh. I had one of those way in the beginning of my career and he wanted to pay cash. And it was like $22,000 to go from Georgia, Atlanta over to Vegas. I don't know. Maybe he had won a lot of money. I don't know. But he wanted to pay cash. And I was like, okay. Anyway, it all worked out. He came to the office, paid cash, and we left on the airplane. But I've never seen that much cash.
Yeah, that's an impressive amount of cash for sure.
Yeah, that was unique there.
It reminds me actually of my days at Millionaire. In the early days, we would have the aircraft that would come in from Mexico and would put a pile of cash on the counter and ask, how much fuel can I get with this much money? Really? And again, you have to use math and then volume discounts and everything. Well, it's very much your own calculation. So I developed math skills that I didn't know I needed throughout my career.
Oh, that's funny. I forgot to ask you. So you said you went to college. What did you go to college for?
Well, I wanted to be a large animal veterinarian. That's what I wanted to do. I actually graduated from high school a year early because I was so excited to pursue this dream of being a large animal veterinarian. My parents were a little hesitant to send me off to school that young. So they said, why don't you stick around here and, get some basics out of the way at community college? And that's how I found myself kind of still sticking around the Houston area and able to work at Millionaire Houston.
Okay.
So I actually still love horses and love large animals and small animals. And luckily, having a successful career in private aviation has allowed me to continue the dream of my little girl horse dream of having them. So it's all
we definitely have to go down this tangent because off screen or before you started recording, we talked about this and we kind of connected at the leadership conference over this as well. So, Annette, you have horses and I've got horses. And actually, I also wanted to be a large animal vet. And I really love that whole profession, although I love aviation too. Anyway, tell us about your horses because I want to hear all about them.
So I currently have 2 horses. I have a 16-year-old quarter horse gelding named Sonita's Little Wimpy, and he is a retired reining horse from the very prestigious stallion Wimpy's Little Step. So in the reining world is kind of a big deal. He's produced a ton of offspring that have done very well in the show pen. And then I have a 2-year-old quarter horse gelding. His name is Tricked Pretty, but we call him Casey. And he actually just started training in January and is progressing nicely as my new show prospect.
All right. Very cool. Okay. So for those listeners that might not know what reining is, can you talk to them about what are you going to show him in? What does it look like?
So reining actually has recently become very popular due to the show Yellowstone.
Yeah.
The scene that everybody remembers is when they're betting on who can slide the furthest, who can do a sliding stop the furthest.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't know is in this scene, all of these people kind of playing in this bet are all of the top competitors and trainers in the true reining industry.
Oh, really? Oh.
And so what Taylor Sheridan did was create, I guess, more visibility to the sport, and people are a little bit more into it now, but it's considered like figure skating on horses. It is set patterns of slow circles, fast circles, spins, sliding stops, all kinds of fun stuff. So each pattern has the same maneuvers in it and same amount of maneuvers in it, just in different order, which can get extremely confusing when you're running 3 patterns in the same day.
Sure. It is this beautiful. I probably only played with some reining here and there, but I will put a link down at the bottom to some videos of reining. So, or if you have one of yourself, we could totally put that up there too.
It's my videos are like watching Little League compared to the higher.
Okay.
So
totally okay. But you're right. It's really beautiful. And it's so fun to watch because once you kind of get into it, you know what the pattern's supposed to be. And then you can look at the different riders and the different horses and the way they interact with each other.
So the true definition of reining is you're supposed to make it look easy, right? You get a higher score as the judge watches. Obviously, you have to stay on pattern. But the goal really is for everyone to look and be like, man, I want to ride that horse. That horse looks easy to ride. And a lot of it depends on the communication between the horse and the rider. That I think is the most beautiful part of it, is having that bond and that communication with them that is almost invisible to everybody else.
Sure. Oh, that's awesome. Well, we'll definitely put some videos and the links down at the bottom because I love that. All right. So let's talk about kind of where you went after that. You were doing some charter sales. What did you do after that?
I decided if I was going to be in California, I should actually live in a place that felt like California. And after my time in Bakersfield, I was at Sun Air Jets as a flight coordinator there, and that is where I really had to step up my game. I worked with Jeff Makeley, who was an integral part of training me to be the flight coordinator that I am today. We actually had to do flight plans there at Sun Air. Had to learn weather, flight plans, had to put a whole report together to present for operational control to release the flight, valuable customer service skills and email communications. And I thank Jeff all the time for the training that he gave me and a truly amazing foundation to be an excellent flight coordinator.
That is so cool. And I think that's the flight planning piece of it. Most companies do not do. I love it though. I had a blast doing that. Did you enjoy that piece of it?
That piece actually made me nervous.
Yeah.
That was the part that made me nervous. I was like, oh boy, where am I going to send them? And are they going to get home? We don't know. I'm kidding. They all made it home. That kind of goes back to, when people ask, what do you do? They go, I'm in private aviation. Oh, are you a pilot? No, I'm not a pilot. Oh, well, do you want to be a pilot? No, that seems really scary to me. It's a lot of responsibility, and I have a lot of respect for pilots. And so the flight planning part of it really got me out of my comfort zone, because my comfort zone is service. And when you get into the technical side of flight planning, I was a little nervous, but so thankful I had that experience and have the knowledge to know what goes into flight planning and what you got to look at. And I learned more about weather than I ever knew. having to learn about flight plans. So it all really kind of builds on itself.
Right. You can use a lot of that in your day-to-day, any aviation day-to-day job that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Okay. So for after Sun Air Jets, then where did you head?
I went back to FBOs. Okay. And, being in
your
flight operations, being on call all of the time or the majority of the time, it's awesome when, you have those challenges and you work through them and everything turns out great. It can be difficult to do it long term.
It can.
Plus, I really wanted to get back to Texas, closer to family, and the opportunity with Landmark Aviation in San Antonio was presented. And I was the customer service manager there for roughly 5 years.
Okay. Which kind of goes back to your customer service, where you just really love the customer service aspect of that. So yeah, I could totally see that would be a great fit. Now, being the manager though, for 5 years, was that kind of an on-call type of thing also? You must have been kind of available.
It was on call. It was a little bit different. What I loved about that part of my life was learning about leadership and learning how to lead a team. And I will say I fell flat on my face numerous times before things really started to click for me. But it all came back to service. And the other part that I also realized during that time was I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed teaching people about service and maybe taking a new customer service representative that, has a really good personality, but a little unsure of themselves with how to respond to difficult customers, because that it does happen at FBOs, and giving them the tools and the confidence to handle those situations.
That's so cool. Training, that's a special person who enjoys and can do that. That's really cool.
And I was able to also, that was during the time when Landmark was acquiring a ton of new locations. And I was on their transition team as well. So I would go into the newly acquired facilities and assist with transitioning and training the employees there and kind of getting them on board with the Landmark processes and procedures, which was a whole other thing that I learned that I really enjoyed, that was basically like project management.
Yeah, totally. Because I bet you come into some situations where maybe those people aren't real interested in changing over to a new company.
Not interested, extremely scared that they're going to lose their job. So a lot of it was coming in to be reassuring that, hey, we need you. We don't have a staff ready to come in and take over. And this is your home. These are your clients. We're just going to, change the sign, change your uniform, and kind of give you a baseline for how Landmark does business and what our customer service beliefs are. And I actually, those were difficult situations to walk into. But what the rewarding part was actually leaving after 2 or 3 weeks and having a new friend. And, again, coming full circle, when you're back to flight coordination, you have planes that go everywhere. And you're like, oh, wait, I know so-and-so at this facility. And if you have an issue or need a little extra help, it's almost like I have this huge network all over the United States now from my time of the transitions.
What a cool piece of that story, because we talk about networking here a lot, and networking just enhances and really kind of makes or breaks the job that you can do. You can just do so much of a better job when you use your network. You reach out and you have people, like you said, in all corners of the world.
Even Hawaii. I'll think better that.
That's great. Now we just need to be able to visit those friends in Hawaii, like regularly, especially when it's, cold and dreary at home. So, wow, very cool. So from Landmark Aviation, then what was your next endeavor? You have just so many cool opportunities that you've done in your life. So
I know I've been extremely lucky. From Landmark, I worked for Lewis Energy Group. I started out as a flight operations specialist, and after 7 years, I was the assistant manager of flight operations. So it was a Part 91 flight department. Rod Lewis is an aviation enthusiast himself. So he is typed in almost everything that he owns. In addition to an ever-changing corporate fleet, he also has a warbird collection that is Lewis Air Legends. And he owns, like, the queen of the fleet was Glacier Girl, a P-38 that was dug out from a glacier in Greenland. Island, I believe. There's a whole story. There was a whole museum to go along with it.
Okay, glacier. All right, we'll try and find that and pop it in the notes too.
Oh yeah, there's a website, Lewis Air Legends. There's lots of really cool stuff that he has.
Okay.
So I remember interviewing for that position, and the director of flight operations kept saying, "This is unlike any flight department you've ever worked for or ever seen." And I'm like, yeah. I've been doing this a long time. I totally got this. Mm-hmm. Boy, was he right. It was very fast paced. There were tons of interesting destinations, constantly changing aircraft within the fleet, and tail number swaps. And I learned a lot in 7 years, and that did get me back on call 24/7, but it was a different way. It was very fast paced, getting ready for trips.
Yeah.
But then kind of once the trip was in progress was like the time to breathe.
Okay. Oh, fun. There, you're right. There's not too many departments that have that many warbirds that are flying.
Right.
They're actually flying. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. So you were there for 7 years. You ended up leading that team towards the end. That's very cool.
I did. And they were like my family, that entire flight department. And we are still very close now. It was just time for a change for me.
Sure.
Again.
And you got a whole new change. You went to, well, I'll let you tell the story, but now you're at a different job and a different state too, right?
Well, Lewis Air Legends is in San Antonio.
Okay.
So I'm still in the San Antonio area, but so I moved from Camarillo to Landmark San Antonio. I was in San Antonio, 5 years with Landmark, 7 with Lewis. And now I am with Solairus, and I'm fully remote as a flight coordinator for Solairus. Even though they are based in Petaluma as well as Purchase, New York, the flight coordinators all work remote, and it works out because the fleet is everywhere. We have aircraft everywhere. So They found that having flight coordinators working remote, you're able to cover time zones, and people are able to still work a normal day without kind of compromising that work-life balance. They have a pretty good model. They have it figured out. Everyone's very happy at Solairus.
That's great. Was it difficult to transition from being in the flight department? I assume you kind of went to the office every day to remote, or do you just love it?
I enjoy remote, but I also miss, having coworkers to talk to and kind of brainstorm with. But with the technology that we have today, my best friend in Solairus, she lives in New York. I've never met her in person, but we're kind of each other's go-to girls when we have questions or things aren't adding up, need another set of eyes. So it's kind of the same, that we still have that connection and that friendship and the professional relationship to help each other when we need it.
The technology tools right now are just so much better. Yeah, I remember trying to do remote work many years ago, and it was very difficult.
Yeah. Oh yes, because it was right. The technology in general has gotten a lot better. Back at my days at Sun Air, we would have to remote into our work computer from another computer, and it was like super tiny. You weren't really sure what you were clicking. And after you do that a couple of times and you have pop-up flights when you're on a call, you're like, forget it. I'm just going to go to the office.
Yeah.
It's too hard. And now it's normal. You have your work set up. It does take discipline to do it, but then you can also kind of go the other way, because once you get really disciplined at working, then sometimes you don't want to come out of your office. You just want to finish this one next thing, just this one more email. Let me just do this one thing.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you've already worked an hour over. But I guess when you take the commute out of it, it makes it easier to do that, to go above and beyond, because you're not, in the car for 30, 45 minutes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally true. Oh, that's very cool. So it sounds like you love your job right now. And I've heard lots of good things about Solairus. They're a huge fleet these days.
They are. We are approaching, I think, 15 years.
Wow, 15 years.
15 years. I obviously have not been here that long, but transitioning in, I kept hearing, Solairus is great. Solairus is wonderful. And I was like, what kind of juice are these people drinking? Is this all true? And it is true. And I will say it was a scary transition going from a Part 91 owner operator that was a big operation, but a very different operation than an aircraft management company. And, could I remember all these policies and procedures that are in place here that makes Solairus so wonderful for people to work at? So it was, with change, with anything, it's always extremely scary. But within, I don't know, I would probably say 4 months, I started feeling like, okay, all right, I can do this. I got this.
Oh, very cool. That's awesome. And let's kind of switch topics just a little bit, and we can weave Solairus in this as well. But you won the Leadership Conference Scholarship. What was that like? Can you tell us about the application process? What did you learn from that?
Sure. I am actually also the chairperson for the Flight Department Committee for South Texas Business Aviation Association.
Oh, now is that kind of a newer group? Like last year?
Yeah, it was just formed last year. I think Jill Case is the one that got this all going.
Yeah.
And Jody Palooza from Millionaire Houston. And I started seeing the buzz on LinkedIn about it. And I was like, oh, yes, absolutely. I want to be a part of, a regional group like that. And I went to their kickoff event in San Antonio. And what do you know? I'm working the check-in table, checking everybody in and getting their names and adding them to the list, and kind of jumped right in from day one. And I was interested in the flight department committee. And I was somehow named chairperson of that committee, which has been great to be a part of this. We're really getting things, we're standing up right now, basically. We're figuring out, what are we doing? What direction are we going? And it's been awesome. So from there, I met Chuck Stroman, who, a lot of people don't know about all of the scholarships.
Sure.
And hardly anyone applies for them. Yeah. And Chuck mentioned that there's a ton of scholarships, to go look at the page and see what's out there. So I looked, I was like, oh, well, the leadership conference, I would love to go to that, having been a previous leader in my previous roles. And now I'm at Solairus, where I absolutely love my position now, but aspire to grow. I was like, this would be an excellent opportunity to expand my knowledge and to be around leaders and kind of have their presence and their kind of like that charisma of a leader, to kind of get back around that environment for inspiration for myself, to kind of motivate, so I can start hopefully taking some next steps at Solairus and trying to grow within the great company that Solairus is. Yeah. So I checked out the website and found the leadership scholarship was still open. I believe it was going to close the next day. Nothing like last minute. Maybe not next day. I think I had like a weekend. So it took a minute to get my letters of recommendation, which I was so thankful that the two people I asked did it immediately and got it over to me. And it was a fairly painless application. Like, most people think of these scholarship applications as, you got to write a 10-page paper and it was very basic. It asks what you've done previously, what conferences you've attended, why you want to do this, what you think you'll gain from it, which, I mean, to me, was all very easy answers to come up with quickly. So I was ecstatic when I got the email that I had won the scholarship. I think they gave out 3 this past year.
Yeah.
And super excited to get to planning. And so the scholarship award included the registration for the conference as well as a travel stipend, which didn't cover exactly everything, which is okay. I think it's okay to have a little skin in the game when you're trying to grow and self-improvement. I think it adds another element of who's serious and who's not, which, it's fine. I enjoyed my time in Palm Springs. And
so tell us about that. What was it like going?
I haven't been to many conferences lately, so it kind of felt like I didn't know very many people.
Okay.
But the BMC committee, I think they assigned a committee member to reach out to each one of the scholarship recipients to just say, hey, I'm here. Let's meet up. I want you to have a friendly face. I want you to feel like you know somebody, to get started. So right off the bat, I immediately felt welcome. And it was a little scary at first, but like all networking, once you kind of start talking to somebody, it leads to 3 or 4 other people, which is how I met you, Lindsay.
Right. When I go to the conferences, I usually have a couple of things I'm like, I know I want to do. And your name was on my list. I was like, I need to find Annette because I want to learn all about her scholarship process and how did she like the leadership conference. And we met the very first night. Yeah, it was the very first night and then networking just by accident. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is perfect.
And it was, you meet one person and that leads to another. And then maybe you are on a break and you are talking to the 5th person that you meet. Then they introduce you to the next 10 people. And before you know it, you feel like almost everybody there. And everybody was extremely nice, willing to share their work history and their goals and what direction they're heading in, as well as kind of bounce ideas off each other. And it was absolutely inspiring to be there for sure.
Yeah. It was a good conference this year, you bet. They definitely gave ample time for the networking. If you don't catch somebody in the morning, there's an afternoon session you can network with. Speakers were good this year. Yeah, it was a good conference. Yeah.
It was absolutely exactly what I needed at that time for myself, as well as for my Solairus family, coming off of the holidays and getting ready for Super Bowl, and obviously the pilot shortage that everyone is speaking of now, the overpressurized industry on a whole, and, simple stuff like Vegas used to be the most simple trip ever to put together. And here in the last year, you are not so confident that you're going to get parking, that you're going to get slots. And if you just look at that one place by itself, it represents what is going on in this entire industry right now, almost everywhere. Everything is absolutely insane. And things that used to be extremely easy are now not so easy, which all piles up. You get stressed out, you get burned out, and going to that conference, listening to the speakers, getting that message, getting that reassurance that it's not just you.
Yeah.
It is probably all of your colleagues. It is probably all of your manager. It is probably everybody feeling this way.
Sure.
And very good reminders of that, as well as the tools to kind of help spot it or help you notice somebody struggling and maybe share your experience or share something you learned at the conference with them to maybe help them navigate this tough time.
Yeah. This year's topic, I think, I'm not sure if I'm getting the topic exactly right, but it was really all about mental health and, making sure that you are taking care of yourself so that you can show up 100% at work as well. How to ask for help and Yeah, it was a really good theme this year.
Where your breaking point is, resilience, sleep, stress, all of it. And I walked away feeling like I had a new lease on life, and I had a new motivation to go back and even help recognize with some of the pilots, with some of the trips on the timing of it all. And yeah, they have the right amount of rest, but what about, it was a reminder of the circadian rhythm and being on the other side of the clock. And that's not what they're used to. So it kind of gave me a reminder, really, that we're not robots. We don't just get in and do the work and fly the plane regardless of the time.
Yep. Very good point. So I'll kind of switch it up just a little bit here towards the end. And I kind of want to say, Sid, you have had just some really great opportunities throughout your career. Lots of different stuff, startups, FBOs, Part 91, Part 135, all of that. What if you were a new person coming in to this industry? What would you suggest to them?
I would first suggest that they hop on the MBAA website and look for I think it's the mentorship tab there, and you can actually request a mentor in the industry to help you navigate to get started, even if you're already started, to help progress. So getting in touch with somebody in the industry is the first thing. If you don't have that ability, go get a job in an FBO.
Yeah.
If you're an outdoorsy person, you can work outside. One thing I forgot to mention is during my time at Millionaire, I was also a ramp girl. So I learned to marshal, to roll the carpets out, coffee ice papers, and me being into horses and enjoying being outside. It was really nice not to have to be behind the desk in high heels and a dress every single day. Sure. So there's a lot of versatility there. So get a job in an FBO and start learning the industry. And as you are there, you will meet people. Opportunities will literally fall into your lap, and you'll know that it's the right thing to do.
I love that. Like I said in the beginning, I think FBOs are one of the most prolific ways that we get more people into this industry, especially those who may not have targeted aviation as their primary focus. Great advice. Awesome.
Absolutely.
So, Annette, what if somebody wanted to talk to you more about maybe your scholarship or perhaps your pathway? How would they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Annette O'Sullivan. I don't think there's many of us in Texas here. And I obviously work at Solairus, so you should be able to find that. Feel free to reach out to me there, connect, send a message, whatever you feel comfortable with. Happy to help.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Annette, thank you so much for your time today. And really, congratulations on winning that scholarship. You definitely deserved it. And I can't wait to see your next adventure, like where you go with Solairus using that scholarship.
Thanks, Lindsay. I appreciate you asking me to be here. I'm excited. It's actually my first time being on a podcast, so I feel kind of special.
Oh, this is awesome. Now I'm so glad to have you. I seriously, I'm not even just saying it for the podcast, but I had you on my list to find.
Oh, thank you.
I was so glad. And what a cool connection with the horses too.
Absolutely. We'll have to trade some horse pictures later.
Perfect. It sounds good. Well, we will reach out to you again and maybe have you on the show to see where your next stop is.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do so.
Great. Thanks, Annette.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes and check out our website for up-and-coming podcasts. This has been a production of the Business Aviation Collective, sponsored by LD Aviation.